Good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF, Walk the Floors. And I'm Stephanie Ledger, here with my co-host, Michèle Kline.
It's great to see everyone here today again. We are excited today for something very special. We have a special guest all the way from Australia. Melbourne, Australia is in the house.
Yay.
We have Natalie Pickett, who's an industry expert, and we have had an opportunity to speak with Natalie, and she's shared some of her experiences from across the world while she was doing service standards inspections. So you can only imagine the type of stories that she has in store for us today. So Natalie, tell us a little bit about you, what you do today, what your experience is, and anything that you feel that everyone out there should know.
Sure. Okay. Hello, and thank you for having me here. It's very lovely to be here, joining you from Melbourne, Australia. As Stephanie and Michèle said, I'm Natalie Pickett. I am an entrepreneur and I have founded multiple businesses, but my experience is and strength is in hospitality and tourism. My career when I was younger took a strange trajectory from banking. And then I decided I wanted to go traveling. So I started working in hospitality and was 5-star trained by one of the top hotel chains. Then I traveled the world in hospitality and gradually transferred over to tourism, very similar, but tourism. And so my experience is more than 35 years, hospitality, mainly tourism. I had my own travel company for 15 years. And for about the last 12, 15 years, I've been a mentor and consultant mainly for the tourism industry as well. So I was very honoured to also become a tourism awards judge. I was a tourism awards judge for several years, and then I went on to help more than 100 businesses become tourism award winners after that experience as a tourism awards judge. So yes, I've certainly seen my share of, as a client, when I had my travel company, going to do site visits, as a tourism awards judge, going to do site visits, and also from the other side, working in tourism and hospitality. So yes, I have lots to share, but we're going to keep it down to 20 minutes today, I believe.
The fast track. Perfect.
All right. So Stephanie, do you want to just show us a little bit of what we're talking about today, which is a very difficult topic or a difficult department for me, specifically when it comes to food and beverage on the back of the house side, because I am a very detail-oriented person. So team members tend to not like me when I'm behind the scenes in the kitchens or the bars or in all those beautiful areas where details are probably not the one thing that we pay attention to the most.
Yes.
So here we have, you can't cry over spilled milk. I cannot wait to hear this.
Yes. And to add on to Michèle too is, with our background from operations is that we know all of their hidden tricks as well, that they forget that I'm like, yes, I know how you guys used to turn things around. Say the comforter or the duvet in the bed that didn't show the stain. Let's just flip it all the way over. And then you pick it up and you look and you're like, hey, I know how you guys are hiding things.
Great, Stephanie, thanks. All right, so Natalie, tell us about your spilled milk story, please.
Okay, so my spilt milk story was when I was a tourism awards judge. So the tourism awards, people need to submit a really detailed, like a 30-page document on all the systems in their business. And then they also have a site visit by one of the judges. So in this story, I am the site visit judge. a lot of businesses would fear the site visit judge. I was always friendly, of course, but I was there. The purpose was to verify that everything they said in their submission was actually correct. So this was actually a backpacker hostel or hotel. So my story about the kitchen was actually a shared kitchen. So it actually wasn't behind the scenes. It was public space because people would come in to use the kitchen as well. So as they were walking me through, look, I'm going to mention this a little bit about communication as well. There was a few things like when I arrived, I wasn't expected, all of those strange things that, you would think if there was a site visit judge that you would have briefed your teams to know that I was coming. And we are also judging all of that as you arrive. Sense of arrival is so important as well. But yeah, so as we're moving around, I inspect everything. I've got my list of things to look at. And we go into the shared space kitchen, which I acknowledge was really quite clean. But there was this huge pool of milk spilt on the floor. And as we were standing there, the representative from the hotel just kept manoeuvring me around, trying to manoeuvre me around so I wouldn't notice the spilt milk on the floor. And it was so obvious. It was like the elephant in the room. And instead of just dealing with it and saying, oh, somebody must have just spilt some milk, it was obviously a new spill, and get someone to clean it up, they tried to pretend it wasn't there, which I also then made me suspicious about, because as you were talking about Stephanie flipping over the duvet and things like that, it's like, well, if you're trying to hide it from me when it's there in plain sight, it was very strange. And then the rest of the site visit, it didn't go well from there. Like there's certain things that I'd need to see, like their procedures manuals and their risk management plans and those sort of things. And they kept trying to send me off to go. And they say, is that everything yet now? And I'd say, oh, no, I just need to see your risk management plans and this. And they're like, oh, right. And is that everything now? No, I just need to see. Eventually some old dusty folders were produced from a cupboard somewhere. So the risk management plan obviously wasn't being used either. Needless to say, it wasn't a great report for their business, which was a shame because they'd done a great submission, but they obviously weren't integrating all the work they'd done in their submission into their actual business. And that's the most important thing about that.
Wow. So quick question, Natalie, did you ever had a chance to go back to that same site?
I didn't go back to judge that site. No, again, yeah. And as an industry person, I've done so many site visits when I had my travel company turning up, arriving for site visits. So I'm familiar with doing site visits. Judging is slightly different, as you would know from doing assessments as well. But yes, there's lots of funny stories of even turning up to site visits where they'll show us into a room that's obviously occupied. And
we have a few of those.
Yes.
and things like that. So yeah, there's a communication breakdown that happens there. And one of my key things that I talk about in my workshops for people is that it's all about the experience. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's all about the experience. So you can try and tell someone that that wasn't the case, but it doesn't matter because my perception of what happened, my perspective is true to me. So it's all about that experience. And to me, the sense of arrival is so important. So the sense of arrival is when you feel as a customer that you made the right choice. We've spent money to buy. It's like when you get something delivered, where you purchase on the internet, get something delivered and it arrives and you're joyous, and sometimes you unpack it and go, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to look like. It's the same thing for the sense of arrival. When we arrive at a hotel, we want to feel reassured that our purchase was the right purchase for us, and that little feeling of joy of, oh yes, I'm in the right place, I made the right decision, because we're either booking it through a travel agent or directly over the internet. So we haven't, there's that expectation, and that sense of arrival is so important. And that communication with teams is so important. So as a tourism awards judge in this case, when I arrived and no one seemed to be expecting me, that was already a disadvantage for them, because it's hard to get back from that sense of arrival if it hasn't been good. You can, as a business, still make that up, but you're sort of working in behind, as in, you know, you're already behind the 8 ball, as in achieving the right expectation. And that sense of arrival has got, well, it's got a few points. It's in the booking process as well. It's when you arrive in the premises, and then it's also when you get to your room. Mm-hmm. So you want to still feel reassured when you're into your room. So if you've got things like a stain on a duvet, or that something's not right, or someone's already in your room, you know, all of those things are also affecting your expectations not being met about that place.
Yes.
And it's those little things about communication is key, that all the team should have known I was coming as the site judge in that case.
Yes, absolutely. And then also too, it, you know, with even prepping, a lot of times they'll be like, oh, someone from corporate's now arriving, and it'll be the front desk staff. They get all nervous and they start like locking up and thinking like, oh, I can't say anything, or I can't even like look at you or smile or acknowledge you. The manager told me I can't say anything. Meanwhile, we know in the back that they're trying to like occupy all the rooms, so you can only go into these particular ones. But I think, you know, it's very important as far as the communication. Yes, making sure everyone is aware of your arrival, but then making sure that the team is trained properly to feel comfortable when they see that the inspector or the judge or the person that's doing the on-site inspection, that they, you know, can be able to engage in conversation, and it's only going to enhance the experience for their grading, I feel, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about making sure that the team on site comprehends exactly what they're going to be scored on, right? Yeah. So not only the preparation from a psychological or an emotional standpoint as to how to react to, how to prepare, how to act in the event this happens, but also what is exactly that I'm being scored for? Yeah. What is an evaluator looking for, right? Specifically for someone who's going to judge you, to score you on a scale as to where your hotel or your motel, whatever the case may be, is going to end up landing on a specific scale. You should know, your team should know. And a lot of the times what we see is that management are the ones that are keeping this information.
Yes.
And that's the biggest mistake ever, because the more you communicate and the more they comprehend, the better they'll be able to execute on it prior to the arrival, in preparation for it, right? Are they going to be checking my back of the house hallways? Yes or no? If no, okay, great. I'm going to refocus these team hours on something else. So I think that we miss out as leaders on this huge opportunity to retrain our teams on the task piece.
Yes.
Right? So I think it's a little bit of both, the emotional side and then the practical side. What do you guys think about this?
I was just thinking in comparison. So when I do workshops for tourism awards and helping people prepare for their site visits, I would give an example of how not to do it, and then talk about the best site visits that I did as well. So a couple of things to pick up on what Stephanie said about how staff become nervous is to make sure that they realise we're just human beings as well, and just be friendly like you would to any other customer is the most important thing. And the best site visits that I did, one example I can think of was actually a winery, and they involved all of their team. So everywhere I went, every different department that I went to, that person then introduced themselves and explained to me their area. And it was a really lovely way to meet all the different team members. And the other thing, as you said, Michèle, really good point, is that management does often keep those things to themselves and doesn't share. So somebody might have written the submission in this case, and no one else in the business really was aware of what went into the submission, so they didn't really know what to show us and what was said in the submission. And you know, those opportunities, whether it's for an audit or for an award, is an opportunity to showcase how well you're doing and showcase your business. It's supposed to be demonstrating excellence. And when you can show that you can demonstrate that across a range of team members, that enhances that experience for any judge or auditor. Definitely. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Stephanie, that's a really enlightening comment that you made. It's showcase. It's your opportunity to showcase. So Stephanie and I had a chance many months back to work for the same organization, and my role was vice president of operations for a specific region. So anything, from the Rocky Mountains west was mine. So Stephanie was the one person who would audit everybody's hotels, and she would go hotel by hotel, and I knew when she was coming, so we would prep for it, and we had specific audit sheets that I happened to have an opportunity to work with Stephanie on building this for the organization before we even kicked off the program on a national level. And that's one piece that I would always teach my team to embrace. It is epic to have someone here who comes in with fresh eyes to tell us where we're standing. You know what she's going to be looking for. You've been preparing for all this time. So how about you show her what you've been doing? You show her how you've been building on all of these things that she's going to be looking for. And of course, she's going to find a few things that you can improve upon. But that's the beauty about audits, is that you have these areas of opportunity that keeps you looking forward on what you can improve on. And it's so important how a lot of operators don't see it that way. They don't see it as a way to showcase what they're doing, but they see it as a way where someone's going to come over and start criticizing, right? So the minute Stephanie puts foot on that property, they're like,
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's very negative. It's crazy.
It's
how it has a negative effect on the leaders as well as the team members, and they get caught off guard, even though it's announced saying this is going to be the day. It's February 1st. We know that they're in the area. We're going to be getting audited this week. And then all of a sudden they've been doing very well, and now the auditor comes and it's like a deer in headlights. And now they all of a sudden, just like name recognition or, a simple task that they do constantly for every single guest. And now they, don't know what the next step to do.
Yeah. One good way to look at it for people who become nervous with things like that, and it's something that I do in a sales training that I deliver for people, is imagine that you're talking to your very best friend. So when the auditor comes, imagine you were showing your best friend what you do at work. Imagine you were showing your best friend your hotel. You do that with pride. And the other thing that I just thought of as you were talking as well, Michèle, about how, and both of you talking about how people feel, have a negative response to feedback. And I find that quite interesting, because the whole purpose of feedback is actually there to help you improve. And I talk about this even in customer service context, in a customer service workshop that I do, is you can pay in a consultant tens of thousands of dollars to come and tell you what you need to improve in your business, or you could just ask your customers who are actually paying to be there, and they'll tell you all the little things that are wrong, or haven't gone that well. And yes, some hotels and tourism businesses do that well in terms of getting feedback, but getting feedback's only part of the process. It's actually the first part of the process. So people gather all this feedback and then they leave it. Like you were saying, Michèle, about management don't share. Management have got all this feedback, and then they don't pass it on. They don't implement any change because of the feedback. So I say that feedback is like gold. So if someone gave you that piece of gold, what would you do with that? And whether the feedback's coming from an auditor or whether it's coming from your customers, that is an opportunity for you to make improvements for things you didn't actually know were wrong. You weren't there actually on the customer journey. You knew your touch points and things, but you actually weren't experiencing the journey, but the customer was. So when they say to you, oh, this wasn't a great experience, you don't then become negative and reactive. You go, okay, tell me more, and what were you expecting? And then you can implement new procedures and new trainings and things like that from that. So to me, that feedback's gold.
Absolutely. And acting upon the feedback as well. It's always about how can we prevent that from happening again, in that, breakdown of service.
Yeah.
So if they're, not knowing that you arrived, okay, how could we have done that better? Communicating to the team members of your arrival.
Yeah. I always say there's two things. It's either a process breakdown or it's a training human error. Yes. If the procedures were followed and there's still an error, there's a problem in the procedures. If the procedures weren't followed, there's a problem in the training of the staff. And some staff, in the end, if they keep making the same mistakes, you may decide they're not the right fit for that role. But yeah, it's often that recognition there's some training stuff there. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had it one time. We used to do fake fire drills, what we would call it. So the GM would say, hey, I just got to call the inspectors in the area for ratings, for accolades. And so then we would all, go in, and he would just have a friend that worked at a different hotel be the inspector that would come in and being like, okay, how are we doing our walkthrough? And we did everything, and then the person would leave, and then we're going up to the GM being like, okay, how did it go? And he was like, oh yeah, so that was just a run through of making sure that we're ready. Obviously we're not. And this is where we need to improve upon. But it worked out great. At first you're like, oh, this was just a test. But it helped of, being able to prep for when that actual phone call was happening or the person was arriving on the property, to knowing, okay, we're able to hit everything from A to Z consistently too. Yeah.
That's a great tip, Stephanie. Having someone from a different hotel come in with fresh eyes and get your gears in motion in preparation for something that I used to do years ago when I was in a smaller region as a director. Is every 2 months, I would gather all the managers and above in a specific property. So the property every other month was a different property. It was regional, right? So then the managers who were coming in for the visit, we would have lunch all together so they could, get to know each other and mingle and so on, and create that sense of team. But then what we would do after lunch, whenever everybody was happy, is I would take everyone for a walk. And we would walk the entire property, front of the house, back of the house, and you name it. Mm-hmm. So what we would do is have the visiting managers prepare inspection sheets. And they were vicious. They were vicious because they knew that it was their colleagues that they were, spotting on. So then when it was their turn to be inspected, it was this competition that now started happening. Mm-hmm. But it was amazing because now I had all these different feedback from all these different eyes who were looking at different things. So my manager from, for example, the kitchen staff, he would see things on the casino floor that someone else who was on the casino floor or on the public space would have never seen before, because it's not what they're constantly looking for, right? So it was super, super interesting. And it's a great tip, I think, or a great way to, number one, create that unity or that team building sense or culture when it comes to your area. A lot of brands have hotels in the same area. Some brands have one right after the other in the same block. and doing so, because you're not only building your teams, but you're also enhancing your quality for free, pretty much.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was been great. Thank you so much, Natalie. We appreciate having you on our show all the way from Australia. And where could our viewers be able to find you?
My website is nataliepickettmentor.com. And yeah, that's my mentoring and speaking business. I have multiple businesses, still a little bit in sort of tourism and food and wine. I have a champagne and sparkling wine business, which is the Bubbles Review, and I have an online wellness business, which is Wellness on Time as well. But you can find me connecting through to my socials on nataliepickettmentor.com.
Wonderful. And we can't wait. We hope to see you soon over here across the pond, the big pond, in the United States shortly in 2022. And then hopefully one day Michèle and I can come and visit you in Australia.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you here in Australia. And yes, I do want to come because for the three of us, let's do a workshop together so we can meet some of the industry face to face as well. That'd be fabulous. So.
Sounds good. Unifying the continents.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Natalie, for being here today. Sorry.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Have a great day, everyone, and look forward to seeing you next week for our next topic.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.